What's going on, Coin Observatory? What's up, Cryptoverse? Welcome to this stream. It's a sad day for Bitcoin, and not quite gonna call it a full-on sad day, but we're seeing some losses. We're seeing it come down. We're seeing a little bit of a sell-off continue, somewhat of a harsher sell-off. Right, it couldn't quite regain this trend line. We're seeing it come down and pull down a little harder. It's trying to bounce off that previous low, right? We're seeing a move trying to bounce off this previous low. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced for a counter trend move here. And the long-term perspective, of what I'm seeing on this chart, I'm gonna dive into shortly. Did publish today why Bitcoin is losing steam. I think there's a diminishing demand and the case for four figures. There's a link to this publication in the video description. This shows what sparked demand and how the shaky state of traditional assets caused a rise in hedging assets. So, now that indices are going up, rising to an all-time high, there's going to be a diminishing demand for Bitcoin. And that's not going to be the case indefinitely. In 2017, what we saw was risk on in all markets, but I do believe we are due a correction. And there's a link to this. It's the first link in all the streams. So if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, there's a link to this publication in the stream. I recommend you read it. It's the first link. It's Bitcoin is losing steam. Now, diving into the BTC USD chart, which one did I want to cover first? All right, this one. All right, so right now, what are we seeing on Bitcoin? Where do I think we're going to see a turn? Well, in this the beginning of this bull market, I did put out a trading view indicator. That was our BTFD indicator, and this one has caught every dip. It's caught every dip since February. It closed above the trend of above the green line. It signaled a continuation. Now this time around, are we going to see this rally resume? We just closed above the trend for the first time. The first test was passed. I'm not convinced. I do believe we're going to see another move down. We're going to try to bounce off that 10,093 mark. 10,000, just right off 10,000, right? That big psychological level. If that breaks, I think 97.38 is going to be the critical support. Now, one of our analysts is saying we're going to retest this previous low, and we very much could. But I do think I see a case for a higher low for us to bounce. I'll get and drop an arrow. I want to see us bounce right here. Right, the 1.272 fib. I did a workshop on this. It should be cataloged under our workshops for you guys on YouTube, and you should be able to watch it and see how we trade this 1.2 fib. This last counter trend move turned at the 1.272. I'm looking for another turn at the 1.272 before we leverage along. The last signal we issued was a short at 13. I'm just going to pull it up. Our last Bitcoin signal came from Cam. Shorting futures U19 at 13,700. Right? 13,000. Oh, that was a stop. So 13,000 mark was our initial short. As things up, it's gaining. Now I'm looking for a counter trend hedge long, or a counter move hedge long in this zone. Why? Because the 1.2 has just been rejecting everywhere, and yeah, unless we get some sideways price action. And on shorter time frames, we see reflexive volume, right? So if the only reason I would long any higher than the 1.272 is if we go sideways, punch down, and I see a good surge reflects a volume for a long opportunity. Why am I looking at long? Why am I not looking at just net short? Well, we did publish on the CME gap, and we do have a case of an overhead gap. The last time we had an overhead CME gap, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of my fibs because they've already served their purpose. The reason this one's here is to demonstrate how we're seeing these these big impulses, right? When we see an impulse and the chart does a counter impulse move, it turns to the 1.2. So I'm looking for the same thing. I picked this swing low and then swing high for my 1.272. All right, enough with drawing tools, enough with fibs. Why am I looking for an up move? Because we're going to have a gap fill, right? We're going to see a move. This yellow line is our CME gap indicator. This one's only for VIPs. If you want to trade the gap, you can just look at the BTC1 CME chart and trade the gap the traditional way. Now, these gaps haven't been filling 100%, right? So we're not going to want to look to profit take right at the gap top. Possibly the 78.6, maybe the 68, 61.8. It just depends what this gap is doing and where the bottom is going to be. This was a gap down move, right? So the chart CME closed here, Bitcoin closed a little lower. We had this downwards move. So if we take our fib, draw it at the gap, come down to the swing low, it's going to give us the upwards retracement for the next move. Now, yes, we did rally past it. We did have a long signal down here. We did have a short signal up here. So now I'm looking for my next long. Why am I so bearish? Why am I looking for a move to the 8,000 mark? We might stop a little higher. I do have the targets posted on here. We do see where are my targets? So a close close below 10,852. Bearish T1 is 10,362. T2 is 9,406, and T3 is 8,298. Where am I getting these targets? Well, if you look at this rally is almost a spitting image of these previous rallies that we've seen. And whether it was the March 24th of 2017 low all the way up to, so from Bitcoin at 800, a big move to 3,000, or the move from 1,800 all the way up to 5K. This is looking like one of those rallies. Now, the real most bearish scenario here, right? This is like the most ultimately bearish scenario. Would be a move down to 72.52, right? Would be that move down. But we could see just the swing low play out, and I think it's too soon to call for 7,400. It's too soon to call for 83. We want to see how this gap fills and what ends up unfolding. But based on this previous top, it doesn't quite look like this top, but one thing we do know for sure is we learn how to recognize some of these bull traps because we've seen them after every Bitcoin top, right? And that's why we set to short there. Our newsletter that went out on July 9th said we're seeing the infamous Bitcoin bull trap. We've seen this everywhere, right? Every rally, every time the quote-unquote bubble bursts, there's one of these, especially when we do a top. We mostly compared this one to what we saw here, right? This is why our publication caution for warning. Now, are we due a big pullback? I absolutely believe so. What I do think is going to happen based on my short-term analysis, right? Based on my short-term analysis, I think before we come down to the 61.8, the 8,300 mark, or even the 92, right? Looking at the Bitstamp chart on the left, what happens is, nope, wrong chart. What happens is BTC likes to come down and retest those previous breakout formations, right? These previous areas of consolidation. Here we saw a pennant broke out, and then here on this retracement level, we pretty much saw the same thing. And this is why I really think we're gonna get a quick revisit to the 8K mark. Not only that, you guys see the correlation here. If I flip this chart back over, this is the 8K mark was the biggest battleground between bulls and bears. And if we add the VPVR, it confirms that. This can be the visible range profile, right? So we want to revisit this high volume node. We might come down and wick off 94 if we don't go all the way down to here. But until then, we're probably going to see one of these consolidation patterns, and more than likely a higher low and a series of higher lows that are going to trap more bulls. Markets are meant to be painful. It's not meant to be a smooth ride up. And here we're gonna start seeing an episode of pain. Why am I saying that? Well, based on my diminishing supply, based on my diminishing demand for BTC, if you look at the indices, look at like the SPY, it's punching out a new all-time high, right? Look at the QQQ. It's punching out a new all-time high. We look at the Dow Jones. Once again, it's punching out a new all-time high. Based on previous publications that we put out on Medium, there's... let me go back here. So even like the macroeconomic parallel, we've seen inverse correlation where there's also a need for hedging assets, right? So gold is on the rise. We published on gold way before the rally. It's like May 16th. It's up 10% from our publications. Make sure you subscribe to us on Medium. We've seen much of an inverse correlation here where it has acted as a hedge, and if we're not going to see it want to act as a hedge while these indices go on a blow off top, we're projecting a big blow off top before these guys crash. And until then, we're likely going to go sideways unless markets decide to go full on risk on, and it's going to take some time to play out. But let me pull up the Bitstamp chart. It's just got more data. If markets decide to go full on risk on and we don't end up crashing, then we're probably going to see that risk on scenario where October 2016, right, where, whoa. Here we see traditional markets just start climbing, and Bitcoin followed them. Why? Because the world was in a risk-on scenario. But as soon as indices started getting shaky, after the bubble bursted in Bitcoin, we saw a lot of volatility both ways. Right? BTC corrected far deeper than these did. I do think stocks are overvalued, but it's not what I think. It's more about what the market makers and the economy thinks overall. All right, going back into BTC. Whoa, there's a nice up move. I still want to see this low get retested again, right? Usually the first turn is insufficient. We've got a saying, the first three in a trade are the ones that get stopped out. We still have this trend line to get past. Once again, there's you might laugh at a 5-minute chart, but a 5-minute chart is going to tell you what volume's actually doing, right? If there is supply, and if supply is overwhelming. As of now, it looks like there's still an overwhelming supply up here. People are trying to sell. But over the course of the next few days, maybe a week or so, we're going to see the CME gap potentially start filling. That was a nice up candle. and that's where we likely want to re-enter another short ourselves. You don't have to do the same thing. You can trade what you see on your chart. We're not telling you to sell your crypto, but we did issue a head short alert up here to our subscribers and to the free newsletter. And we go back to Bitstamp. But based on your typical BTC corrections, I do see a reason for a larger move down, especially when we start seeing these corrections unfold. Right, we see that first dip down. Hopefully, this doesn't look like this previous dip where it's just gonna completely plummet. One thing that tells me we're not gonna plummet is because there's that overhead gap, unless we end up doing a gap fill. A breakaway gap. A breakaway gap is a gap that does not want to fill. Lots of volume coming in here. Nice. Okay. This is looking promising. The trend line hasn't broken. We might not ring my lower low, guys. We might just come up and close that gap before I can get a long in. And that's what happens when you're patient. You might miss a trade, but you won't get stopped out. You won't trade choppy territory. Can we expect a new pattern? Are you open to that? Am I open to a new pattern? Consolidation pattern type of thing? Where we don't see one of those massive pullbacks? I mean, look at that, right? This last low, we came pretty close to punching it last time around, except for we found support up here. Am I open to a new pattern? Well, let's check fibs on a long term. And I'm going to remove this. We're below the 50%, right? We're below the 50% fib, or are we not? I'm going to say we're below the 50% fib. Now, until we can reclaim that, until I see a reason to go bullish again, then I don't know. I mean, there's a reason we called this the bull trap, right? And it's very similar to this one, very similar to this one. That we see the pullbacks, right? BTC usually corrects at least 40% several times during a bull run. So off that top of 40% would put us right at that 8K mark. There's very much a lack of volume below, and lack of volume, if you read my paper, I describe what lack of volume does and what happens, why it's really easy to move the price down when there's no demand for an asset, and it's also easy to move the price up when there's no supply. During these breakouts, we were watching the books, and especially like this up move, there was 0 sellers. We did short down in here because of our gap indicator. It's called the weekend gravity indicator, right? We had an unfilled gap down here, and that filled really quickly. So we're gonna see the overhead gap want to fill, but no, I think one of those corrections is due. Right, we're going to come back to some high volume nodes, and I would discount previous volume. Those buyers are now either hodlers or out of the market. So 9,200, and ultimately, you know, that those targets I mentioned earlier. So 8K, 8,300 or so. Can I compare the market cycle on a weekly chart? You want to know what the weekly chart tells me? We're seeing potential tweezer tops. I'm going to remove all my drawing tools. And I really don't like weekly charts because they don't really give you a trade. And what the weekly chart's going to do, there's a lot of selling that week, and now if this week counters it and even more selling, right? We're gonna see this is a it's like a hammer. Now if we see two of these wicks like that, those are going to be somewhat of a tweezer top with a indecision doji in between. Those tweezer tops signal a down move, right? It's got to break that 9K, that previous low, and that's why I said we're likely going to print a higher low. But here's your weekly, right off Bitstamp. I like 4-hour charts. I like hourly charts. I like to be able to read the details, right? You want to read the fine print. I want to read the fine print. Well, think news overtaking 5 billion tether just got printed, so market manipulation coming in again. I wouldn't. People give too much into tether. I gave into the tether Bitfinex FUD, and I thought we were gonna black swan down, and I'll admit to doing that. But this rally didn't start because of tether, right? We wrote on this rally. This is March 31st. Market sense and nonsense. This was before any tether news. We had our longs at 38.55, stop at 38.25, leverage at 25x on September futures. And that week we mentioned another market edge theory that we're not willing to disclose at the moment has our bullish target of 4,700. More importantly, 4 p.m. today and this coming week could mark the beginnings of the cryptocurrency market. And that was March 31st. In terms of when the heck was March 31st on the chart, it was 2 days before the big up candle. March 31st. Here we go. So, right, we had bought our longs at 38.55 right here, and we were waiting for the bull run to start. Tether news started coming out in this range up here, and this was, I think, the initial tether dip, and the chart just kept rallying, right? So I tend not to give much in the tether news. I'd rather trade just the technicals. We do have a trend line break. Not yet. See, that's good reflexive volume. That's what we talk about when we want to see reflexive volume. This is going to likely be a gap fill. Actually, I've got that indicator on the chart already. This is going to be a move up to 11,721. We're probably going to want to go sideways here. But I'm not convinced that this correction is over. I'm still not. This is a good retest of that trend line on good volume. Right, and it looks like this boost is coming from alts selling off. So if we look at elders, and we got some alts up here on my screen. Right, some of this volume is altcoin selling off in a BTC to give it a boost to save it. Which I don't know how long that practice is going to be sustainable. What do we see in here? Is there a trend line? Now, if for some reason BTC does develop this this symmetrical triangle, then we're going to say, okay, this pattern's changing. We're not going to see the 40% correction. Or in this case, it'd be more of an ascending triangle. Whoa, that's good volume. Way to go, Bitcoin. Did not get a long fill. This is a good indication that there is support here. So, how long will it hold? Will it hold? What's really going to be interesting is what happens when indices start going up, right? So, when indices open up and they start really going higher and higher, let me go to the ES1. Are we going to get a case for like diminishing demand as I was writing, or are we not? So, that's the key metric to look out for. And also, can we make a higher high? Can we take out this high? Can we take out this previous high? Those are all important questions right now. I'm gonna go over others.d and Bitcoin dominance. Been pretty key metrics. And I think BTC.D and others have been contributing to this Bitcoin rally. So altcoins have been selling off in a BTC on very low volume to increase BTC's actual valuation, right? It's just another tool the market makers have. This was looking like a rising wedge, and it hasn't knocked out a higher high. Not yet. One of my associates is calling for a move to the 200-week moving average on dominance before a turn. Personally, I'm not seeing that. I think we're gonna cap out where we had capped out, unless BTC can knock out a higher high, and then my diminishing demand theory is bust. I was looking for a wedge to break here. I'm just going to remove drawing tools. Go to daily. I mean, we're almost as low in dominance as we were on December 6, 2017 during the Bitcoin, the rage, right? During the BTC all-time high. Are alts going to hold there? Are we going to break? I want to see them hold, right? I want to see them hold. I do think we're entering an altcoin accumulation period. It's going to last some maybe 7 to 20 or so days before we get the big up move in alts. What's our harmonic scanner saying? We did have this is BTC. We did have a long entry here, but it was below the stop, right? And it kind of punching out stops on our scanner. And volume didn't really come in at that first up move till later, so that's something the signal I'm not going to take. But we're seeing 11,607 as T2. The actual CME gap's right at 11.7. So we're likely going to see the gap fill before the weekend, which is going to suck. I like trading the gaps back to, I like trading the gaps when they're a large move. This was 7%. And it was kind of a miss, but there was no reason to go in for a long except for that previous support. Will these bulls get washed out? It's going to be interesting. I want to see if we retest this low again. Welcome, Terry. Hi, guys. Have any questions on BTC? Any questions? You guys want me to go over some alts? Ether, I was looking for a move off 258 for a long. Didn't quite get down. There was a 260. Ether is still below that trend line. We're not seeing any bullish harmonics on our scanner for ETH, right? So we're still below this trend line. All right, fam. Anybody else got? You guys want me to cover alts? Any suggestions? Anything you want me to look at? Any overlays, indicators? Let's do an Ichimoku cloud. I think right now we're in the chop zone, right? It is below the 4-hour cloud. That's pretty bearish. It's kind of below that trend line on the 4-hour now. Right, so we want to see a revisit of here before the actual move. Did we just gap fill? I don't think we gap filled, right? Why? Because CME is not open today. It's going to be more of a Monday move or Sunday night move. So this is still weekend price action, and it is still somewhat invalid when it comes to trading the actual gap. This gap move already came up like 78. Up to almost a 78% retracement. I want to see what happens. I still want to see that lower fib target play out. Was this a 1.272 of a swing that I missed? We might have missed this one on a minor 1.272. It's probably higher risk than I wanted to take, trying to catch a knife when we were short from all the way up here, right? From this swing low, I don't like that swing low. Well, when 5 billion tether gets printed, there's a reason for that, right? There's somebody that pretty much moved that much fiat into the market. Right, somebody's thinking, I'm going to buy this DEP. And how much was it? 5 billion tethers. So someone wanted to start layering in $5 billion worth of BTC or worth of USD and a Bitcoin. All right, guys, show me some alts. If not, I'm just going to go to CoinMarketCap and see how alts are doing on BTC today. So let's do that. Look for some top gainers. DAI, pretty sure that's like a gold-backed token, or so they say. Raven's up 9%. V Systems, not sure what that is. Chainlink's up 7%. Let's cover Raven. Raven's a crowd favorite. And I am holding some Raven off exchange. That was a pretty good move from RVN. Look at that. He's doing a secondary bull flag. This one's likely going to take off. As I said, alts are either going to start ripping or they're going to enter an accumulation phase. And I'll talk about that here shortly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over to Coinigy and add some of my favorite moving averages. Go to the daily chart and see what's happening. So RVN, I'm not sure it's been trading enough to pick up my my daily moving averages. It's far from it, right? It's far from it. But we can see it take off again, right? It's starting to get that close. We still don't have a crossover But tokens that tell me what's happening in the altcoin accumulation cycle are things like BAT, right? Alts that have been around, that have a purpose, and that have been trading for some time. And what they like to do is come down and knock out some lows, create liquidity, and before they start closing bullishly. Bat's not there yet, but these typically give us like a 24-day window. These last two corrections did, right? So they put out a good 24-day window of quote-unquote altcoin accumulation before the actual rip. Now, if BTC decides to run up to like 30K, 40K, which I don't think is very likely right now, not until we get further indication, it might push alts lower. But we're starting to see some of these patterns play out on the daily, right? We might see one of these, and this was after the 12/8, 12/9. So this was December 2017 for these mega moons. So that tether was burnt. Oh, did the chart start dumping again? Oh, it's totally dumping again. That's what I said. It was probably way too early for one of those moves. That's funny, man. Market's reacting to tether news. And now we're selling off on higher volume than we ran up, right? And here we go. So these volume stakes are pretty much consuming all the buying. The reason I like to trade if I do a high leverage trade, you don't want to pop in right here. You don't want to pop in right here and just get stopped out because you're trading a big time frame or so. Big time frames are really good for formations, and like daily charts are good for trends and seeing what's happening. But I like nitpicking entries. Now, is this a descending broadening wedge? Did we just attempt to break the first time, fail the retest? I'm not a big fan of the slope of it and where it came. And it looks like the retest is failing. So I'm pretty sure I'm still back to my my short-term consensus of we're gonna punch a low lower than this one and higher than the previous low, because what market makers are gonna want to do, they want to create a higher low, an uptrend, so to speak, and bring in more buyers, right? The more buyers they bring in, the more liquidity they can create overhead. I think this trend line is going to look something like this. I'm going to squish it down at just the candles, not the wicks. And it's going to put like a medium, like the actual median is going to be like 10,219. That's going to create a really profitable gap trade. If we do come down in here, I'm like over the weekend or over this week, I'm likely to start layering in some longs from here down to the wicks. What do you guys think about Tether? You guys think Tether caused this run? You guys think this is all Tether? He's back to alts. I mean, I'm thinking we're in one of these phases, right? We're definitely in one of these alt accumulation phases where we're going to see these bad boys do what they do. And I wanted to write about this in the Medium article, but I felt like I didn't have much time considering what the actual reasoning for altcoins is. People forget that altcoins are a tool to move Bitcoin price up or down, and also a tool to make market maker more BTC. When we look at these run-ups, I mean, were they all necessary? If you look at all these altcoin cycles, Was this all necessary? I like BAT because it's a good indicator of actual cycles, right? We see this thing go up and come down in value, and it leads a lot of other tokens or it lags them like ZRX. We've seen ZRX cycle, we've seen Lumen cycle, we've seen Monacoin, we've seen a lot of coins do this. But I like this one because it tells a story. So when market makers start these big moves, they're in the accumulation zone, right? They accumulate here, distribute here, and then likely dump. And when their accumulation zone starts, all it takes is a little volume to spike it up, or enough volume to cause a breakout, further accumulation, and then you have FOMO moving it up. So what that does, it creates an opportunity for a market maker to increase how much BTC they have. Now, during Bitcoin surges, we see these big sell-offs, and by doing so, by selling alts back into Bitcoin, they're actually contributing to Bitcoin's value by contributing to how much dominance it has over the cryptocurrency market cap, right? So they're a good tool to give BTC a boost when actual USD demand comes down, right? So when there's a low influx of buyers, by dumping alts and getting out of alts, market makers can essentially start moving the price up to contribute to a rising BTC. Not only that, but during this whole sell-off, the altcoin sell-off, there was no volume. Those books were empty. So a lot of bag holders off exchange don't even have orders in the books, and their bags are just going down to nothing, right? And low volume sell-offs makes it be either a flock to quality or just we're going to see another one of these cycles play out. And I'm leaning towards the idea that we're going to see a cycle. It's a rinse and repeat. That's all it is. Right. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Right? It's pretty obvious. Let me do this. Remove all drawing tools. I'm gonna put BTC up top and BAT below. I'm just gonna like highlight some swing highs and swing lows. So let's just swing low. I'm just gonna drop some horizontal or vertical lines. You got a swing low on BAT, right? And it capped off. It was kind of range trading. Let's take this. Let's take the swing lows on BAT because it's gonna give us the actual cycle. Right, and we see a run up, and BTC went from not quite a swing high, pre-highest high, and then it sold off. Another swing low on BAT was here during a mid move on BTC. It's going to approximate for the length of the stream, and then a swing high here. All right, so we're going to see these things play out. And, you know, what did market makers do? Probably scale out of BAT back into BTC and maybe into some hedge. And then we see another swing low here, a pump right before the dump. Right? What did BAT do here? It actually cycled. All coins went through a cycle before the actual sell-off. Was it the day before, a few days before? We saw like Mana ETH make 300% in this exact time period as BAT did that. And during that time, BTC was going sideways. So one thing people forget is that these are just a tool for market makers to generate themselves some BTC, stimulate the market, create some hopium, and then dump the chart. And we got another quote unquote, let's call it BAT season. It's not an all season. It started here and ended at that swing high in April, and BTC was moving up. And now we're back below that lower low. So you're telling me that market makers are never going to do this again? Are they going to wait years before they do this again? I disagree. I think likely going to see a move in volatility for an altcoin cycle. Not. I think it's too soon. I think it's too soon. Let me check ADA. I'm not really trading MEX alts. I'm pretty sour on MEX for deleveraging my futures from 38.55. So I moved over to like Darebit and Bybit, most of my funds, because they deleveraged us too soon, man. We had September futures from 3,800. We could have been retired millionaires by now. Go over ADA, BTC. It's too soon. Way too soon for ADA. It's not even in my momentum zone, right? ETH BTC, you know, I tried longing it so many times. It's really frustrating. I can pull up our harmonics scanner and see. We had some long signals. It's not wanting to play out. I mean, we pretty much have had several long signals. I think we're gonna punch that 2271 before we start flying. This is the 4-hour chart, and I can't tell you how many long signals we've had at this bottom, right? So we had one here, barely, not even make T1. We had another one here, didn't make T1. We had another one here, and I think we're gonna come down and take out that stop at, I'll just scoot this over so you can see 2271 on Ether. But I do think when this thing triggers, right, we do know that Ether futures are coming. They're coming this year. And I think when that triggers, it's going to be very interesting. All right, fam, I covered what I needed to cover for today. If you guys have altcoin suggestions, go ahead and show me. Show me once, show me twice. Give me some alts to look at. And I'll cover them for you. We still got some 10 minutes left in the stream. Well, smash that like button. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you know when we're live. And I've been streaming daily, right? Not quite at the same time. I try to go live right at like 11 a.m. CST today. Market just didn't look like it wanted to tell me much, right? We had our shorts in. There wasn't really an update up until this breakout started even further. Breakouts can happen to the upside or downside, right? So this downward breakout. I mean, it's some good volume here. This is really good volume. Is it reflexive though? Are we gonna knock out a lower low? I am not sure. However, we're gonna see. It looks like it's holding at that trend line, right? This might be an opportunity to long up until gravity indicator. This one's locked up, right? It's only for VIPs. Doesn't tell you where to long, but if you want to long at 2x, add at 3x, go to 4x, 5x, and trade back to the gap, it's a sound strategy. Except for that one time where we got messed up and then we made it all up in like 30 minutes. Was this gap move, right? I started shorting here. I got stopped out, and then I shorted here. Profit took, shorted again here, and all the way here. But this was painful. It kept going up, and I'm like, guys, it's going to come back to 63. And then it shot up to 8,300 from 74. And everybody's like, dude, you're a fool. It's never coming back down to 63. And then it filled. Any unfilled gaps? We do have one unfilled gap. It's at 8,400, guys. It's that target that I have, right? It's that 40% target. So now we got another confirmation of another reason to come down in the scope of this correction to 84. All right, thank you all for tuning in. You guys have been amazing. Thanks for all your input. And what do I think about Ether Classic? Oh my God, last time I had an Ether Classic bag was like February 2018. Not a momentum zone. So what's unique about Ether Classic is you can't reverse transactions. You guys remember when CZ, when the Binance hack, they were talking about reversing the blockchain, right? That's like one thing that Ether Classic you can't do with. BTC chart not showing a turn in sight. I mean, it's probably going to want to moon at some point. It hasn't mooned in so long, right? I mean, usually when it does these capitulation moves, it stabilizes and it gives us a long signal on one of the daily time frames. What does that look like? Did we even get a clear long? It gave us like a pennant and then a cross, a bull cross for a big rally. That's why I like trading these, moving averages and stuff on the daily, and looking for accumulation pockets and such. So, that being said, I think it might pop. All right, is it due to any factor other than altcoins doing what altcoins do and being a mechanism to generate more BTC? I don't know. It's up to you to decide. You're welcome, Drew. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone, for tuning into this stream. Once again, I'm on Discord. Catch me on Discord. And if you want a link to the Discord, let me know. We'll drop one in the video comment box. If not, catch us on Medium. Catch us on Twitter. Trade safe.